most of the negative is behind us. I really do think that. And even any future contagion, I think, is somewhat expected and priced in. I think we got to the point where people just, nothing would surprise anyone anymore. I mean, listen, Genesis just filed bankruptcy and Bitcoin price didn't move. Listen, 10,000, it's possible. I'm not going to say that it's not possible. I wouldn't say it's plausible, but I would say it's possible. But like when you start hearing 3,000, 5,000 and zero, when you're down like 75% and people want another 75%, it's usually a signal that maybe nothing can stop Bitcoin. It can just slow it down. So I really think all evidence is that we have either bottomed or even if we go a little lower at some point, it'll just be a quick thing like we talked about, sort of like this FTX thing, and we go up. But everything to me says buy the dip. Yeah, I got into crypto in 2016. I had a kind of a long music career as a DJ, a music producer, and then my daughter was born and I had to kind of retire from the DJ life. And I had always been a trader, and I just kind of luckily found crypto through a bunch of other DJs that were trading it. I totally, as I've said many times, I showed up and was all about trading and making dollars. It had nothing to do with any of the use case of crypto or the importance of Bitcoin. And after, months and months and years of trading it, that's when I really, I think, got orange pilled, so to speak, and became super passionate about the asset class and the newsletter and podcast and all those things. So I've really been here since 2016. The first year I was pretty much just trading. And then, I really went down the rabbit hole. And I think, once you start tumbling down, there's really no end. I haven't seen this much drama anywhere. It was March or April, right, when we did Bitcoin 2020. That was really just right a couple months before Luna and before everything really started to go down. And listen, when Luna collapsed, I think it was pretty clear there was going to be some contagion, but even I never imagined it would be as bad as it was. But I think it's really important, and it has to be said every time we bring up how rough 22 was and all the things that collapsed, that none of that had to do with crypto, right? That was just like centralized platforms run by greedy people who used poor risk management, right? Yeah. And then in some cases, just outright fraud, right? Which I think is the case of SBF, obviously. But otherwise, it had nothing to do with DeFi or with Bitcoin as an asset or with the technology underlying that's obviously going to eat the world. And so as sort of disheartening as 2022 was, because it was, people lost so much money on these platforms, myself included, and just because I think people are disillusioned and lost faith, it's important to remember that during these bear markets is actually when all the compelling use cases are built for the next bull market. And there's so many incredible things being built that, we're just sort of waiting for a price to go up so that everybody can get excited about it again. To be honest, it's really hard. And some days, you probably know the feeling. Some days it was just kind of embarrassing to show up and be a cheerleader when things were on fire. It's like being the little meme of the little dog or whatever, this is fine and everything's on fire around you. That's sort of how it felt to be a crypto YouTubing and doing podcasts during that time. But for me, having the podcast, especially even more than any of my other content, I was constantly talking to these brilliant people who are building these amazing things. So it was easy for me personally because I was given sort of the access to all this information and these people who blow your mind on a day-to-day basis. That price sort of faded into the background, and it was still easy for me to focus on all the things that were being built and the incredible potential. It's just, it was a very difficult time, but I've never lost the faith that it was going to go back up, even as I was somewhat embarrassed by all the things that were happening. Most of the negative is behind us. I really do think that. And even any future contagion, I think, is somewhat expected and priced in. I think we got to the point where people just, nothing would surprise anyone anymore. I mean, listen, Genesis just filed bankruptcy and Bitcoin price didn't move.
Exactly.
Right? When bad news ceases to be bad news, it's usually a good sign that things are starting to turn around. It sucks that people had to go down with them, unfortunately. But imagine if SBF had made it another 6 months. Or another 3 years. Because even speaking of Voyager, which I mentioned, FTX was about to get all of Voyager's assets.
True.
Right? FTX was the buyer for Voyager. So imagine, as bad as Chapter 11 is for Voyager creditors, imagine if all of their assets had been thrown over to FTX a week before FTX went bankrupt, and then you had a double Chapter 11 bankruptcy to deal with. So as horrible as it was, you're absolutely right that the faster it got cleansed and we got rid of those people, the better. And if there's others, we need them to go too. I would have at the time said supporting one another, right? Like it was an ecosystem and they were investing in one another and all of that. But it turns out it was just like a big washing machine of sending money back. I mean, when you look at BlockFi, like BlockFi got a bailout from FTX, right? The $400 million credit facility or whatever it is. But then you looked on BlockFi's books when they filed bankruptcy and they basically took that money and loaned it to Alameda for interest. So FTX gives them money. They give money to Alameda. Alameda like loses it. It's just crazy. It's a fake bailout, right? They just sent the money back to the same company to earn a yield as a loan so that they could try to give their customers yield. It's disgusting, man. It's really nonsensical. It's very disheartening. But I think, like I said, the worst is behind us. I mean, sentiment follows price. It doesn't lead it, unfortunately, right? Like you counter trade the sentiment at the bottom and the top, and then it's probably over when everybody all of a sudden jumps on board. Like if the super bears, like if Jim Cramer all of a sudden is like buy crypto, it's over. Listen, 10,000, it's possible. I'm not going to say that it's not possible. I wouldn't say it's plausible, but I would say it's possible. But like when you start hearing 3,000, 5,000 and 0, when you're down like 75% and people want another 75%, it's usually a signal that maybe like people are euphoric just in the other way, right? Like bearish euphoria and extreme fear. I don't think price is going to 10,000, by the way. I just think it's possible. Listen, I don't think Binance is in any risk. I think they just got the stress test of the century and survived it. But like if a Binance went down or a Coinbase or something, I think we could see a pretty big, but I don't see that happening. And honestly, even if it does happen, we erased the FTX drop entirely in 2 months, right? I'm looking over here. FTX, the week before the drop, the top for Bitcoin was 21,473. We're at 23,000 right now.
Yes, we did fully recover. You see that nice little...
Yeah. And people said FTX was the end of crypto, right? No, it couldn't get worse. Sam Bankman-Fried, and price is just right back where it was. I mean, nothing can stop Bitcoin. It can just slow it down. As far as price, we haven't slowed down the hash rate. We haven't slowed down like the adoption. You know, all the metrics on chain continue to increase regardless of price. Bad for miners, but just holds price down for a while, which is great for anyone who's trying to accumulate. You know, imagine Bernie Madoff getting arrested and viewing that as an indictment on like the entire financial system. Nobody saw it that way. Nobody's like, we can't do stocks and have investors anymore because of Bernie Madoff. It's like, it's just disingenuous to pretend it's because of crypto. Like a fraud is a fraud. Right. And people have been getting scammed since the beginning of time. They didn't need a new technology to do it. Right. And so SBF, unfortunately, was a massive fraud and still seems to like not think he was. I don't know if he's like. But listen, SBF's a trader and this is the trade of his life. Right. He just bought himself at least a year of freedom.
Yeah.
Which maybe he wouldn't have had. I mean, he was sitting in like a rat infested jail cell in the Bahamas. And now he's at his parents' house hanging out, having visitors and playing video games and writing long form Medium posts. I don't get it, man. Why does this guy get to talk to the public right now? How does he have a forum to like express his opinions at this moment? All of these guys need to go away. They need to get washed out. I'm not saying they all need to go to jail. I don't know if they're criminals or not, but they need to disappear from crypto. And if we let them back in, we will reap what we sow. And I really hope that doesn't happen. But these guys are just back on Twitter, just hanging out, arguing, billionaire to billionaire. You got Cameron Winklevoss arguing with Barry Silbert. Well, billions of dollars of real people's money are on the line. I don't know, man. Just text the guy. Yeah, I think it's with great power comes great responsibility, right? We know that the mainstream media is a joke. I think we've all accepted that, right? That it's just fear-mongering and very little of what is reported is news. They break news and then they never apologize when they're wrong. They just move on as if it never happened. Let's first say that charting is an art, not a science. Everybody has a different opinion. Everybody has a different indicator. Everyone has a different strategy. And I utilize quite a few of them. What I've found the most interesting right now with Bitcoin is that this red line is the 200-day moving average, right? Blue one is the 50. if you notice, we hadn't even touched the 200-day moving average in 291 days.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so, and it took until December of 21. We all know what happened in December of 21, right? That's when it all died. We saw that day where it went from 50 to like 42 in a day. So the 200 moving average, a lot of people view as the trend. We only touched it once in that entire period, and that was 291 days ago. And we broke it on a major increase in volume like 12 days ago. So I am looking for some sort of drop soon. But to me, that's not like we short it and we go to new lows. It's like enjoy the dip and buy it. Because I really think that we should on this move hit 25, which is that next red line there. And then eventually maybe even 28, 30. Now, would it surprise me if we hit 30 and then went down to like 17 or 18 and really trolled people? No, because this is Bitcoin, right? I tell you, like, this is the weekly chart. This is one of the biggest weekly up candles. That was a 25% move in 1 week, right? That usually doesn't just happen. That usually means that we're seeing a new trend. And you can see above here at 25, that's the 50 and 200 MA, which we haven't even touched yet. So maybe we get up to that area. We had the first halving here. The bottom was when weekly RSI, which is what this is, hit oversold. See right there where it goes from the blue to the white?
Yes.
And then that was the bottom, and we saw a major pump all the way to the next halving, right? Then the next bottom after that halving was when in 2017, we went all the way up to 20. We came down to like 3,000. That's when RSI hit oversold. That was the second time in history, right? Now we have halving 3, and the third time in history, Bitcoin went oversold on the weekly RSI when we hit about 17,000. That was the bottom before FTX, remember? And then we kind of went sideways for months.
Yes.
But this formed bullish divergence. So even when we got the FTX drop, RSI never even came back down to oversold. That's usually a sign of buying strength. I think this would have been the bottom if not for FTX. But we've retraced all of that. So like if you're looking at the next halving cycle, we should be kind of sideways and then up into a bull market into the next halving, or at least, and then we get the next massive move out of the next halving. But so I really think all evidence is that we have either bottomed, or like, even if we go a little lower at some point, it'll just be a quick thing like we talked about, sort of like this FTX thing, and we go up. But everything to me says buy the dip at this point when we get it, but we should get it sooner than later in my opinion.